I'm Silent Flame, and here's the heresy you were never meant to hear. You were taught the Buddha founded a peaceful religion, temples, chants, robes, rules, comfortable, contained, holy. But the first shock is this: the Buddha did not build a sanctuary, he detonated one. His most dangerous teaching was never a doctrine, it was a solvent. It dissolves priests and scriptures, lineage and certainty, even the Buddha you worship. The forbidden truth: if you need authority to tell you what awakening is, you are already asleep. The moment you kneel, the dharma dies. History loves a polished idol. The radical edges get filed down, the dynamite hidden under incense. No sacred owner. Awakening was not a product to be sold by monks, nor a status to be stamped by a lineage. It was a verb, clear seeing, here and now, open to anyone with the audacity to look. Come and see is the most subversive sentence in spiritual history. Test it yourself. Oh, nobody worship. No metaphysical throne. He refused to canonize the unknowable. When pressed about ultimate origins, souls, heavens, he went quiet. Not because he lacked answers, but because addiction to answers was the illness. The silence was a blade, severing speculation from liberation. No ritual guarantee. He didn't condemn ritual. He stripped it of magic. Chant as you like. Nothing substitutes for seeing how craving manufactures suffering in real time. Without that sight, bells and bowls are tin and theater, no self to save. The shattering claim: there is no owner behind the eyes. What you call I is a temporary traffic jam of sensations, urges, memories, opinions. Salvation isn't polishing a soul, it's seeing there was no jewel to polish. Dependent origination as acid. Everything arises together: body, mood, story, world. This isn't a comforting tapestry. It is acid poured on every fixed identity and crown. If everything inter is, nothing can claim divine exemption, not kings, not priests, not the script you use to protect yourself. Result: the Buddha's project wasn't become spiritual. It was watch the machinery of craving and demolish your need for a spiritual owner. Dangerous teachings don't vanish because they're wrong. They vanish because they are ungovernable. Authority needs a pedestal. If awakening is verifiable in your bones, middlemen become unemployed. So the wildfire gets tamed. Carve the man into marble, turn the verb into a museum, sell tickets at the door. Economies of salvation. Gilded halls require donors. Donors require certainty. Certainty requires dogma. The living inquiry becomes a product line. Blessings, initiations, levels. The solvent gets bottled and relabeled. Absolute truth trademark. Control loves identity. No self is intolerable to systems whose power depends on your labels. So the teaching is reframed as poetic metaphor, a nice thought for Sunday talks, stripped of its political voltage against caste, title, purity cults, spiritual celebrity. Silence is bad for business. The Buddha's refusal to answer metaphysical bait was a diagnostic. Institutions can't monetize quiet. They replace it with spectacle, relics, miracles, rankings. The crowd applauds. The disease remains. Verdict: the forbidden teaching is not hidden in caves. It's erased by habit, our terror of living without a spiritual supervisor. Here is the line that turns temples into interrogation rooms. Trust direct seeing over scripture every time. When your experience and the book disagree, the book burns inside you. When your teacher and your conscience collide, your conscience wins. When your lineage demands belief, ask for evidence. If none appears, bow to reality and walk on. This is not arrogance. It is obedience to the only thing that ever liberated anyone: contact with what is, unfiltered. The Buddha's scandal wasn't philosophy, it was permission. He gave you the keys and told you to stop asking gods for the right to leave.
What does forbidden look like on a Monday? You cancel the audience. You stop performing spirituality. You measure practice by clarity during conflict, not by posture in a hall. If anger surges, you don't chant over it. You watch the spark hit the gasoline of I, and you learn chemistry. You retire your halo titles, robes, certificates, or costumes. Wear or discard them, but never confuse wardrobe with wakefulness. You refuse promotions in the hierarchy of holiness. You cut the safety net. No metaphysical aftercare guarantees your courage. You don't threaten yourself with heavens or hells to behave. You behave because you can finally feel consequences without anesthesia. You de-idolize the Buddha, not disrespect, precision. You treat the statue as a mirror. If it reflects your own capacity to see, keep it. If it becomes a surrogate for seeing, remove it. The Dharma is not a person. It is a pressure to be honest. Forbidden is ordinary life lived without spiritual anesthesia. It is the end of outsourcing sanity.
The most protected idol is not the Buddha. It is your need to be told who you are. Identity feels like oxygen. The forbidden teaching rips the mask. You are a choreography, not a character. You don't have a self. You participate in a pattern. When the pattern is seen, clinging has nowhere to cling. What remains is not emptiness as void, but emptiness as capacity, room for everything, room for you, finally, without owner's manual. This is why the truth gets erased. It cannot be contained by a throne, a brand, or a savior. It returns power to the one place no empire can reach, your unmediated awareness. I'm silent flame. If this sounds like sacrilege, good. Reverence is often fear in robes. Keep what proves itself under pressure, discard the rest. If the Buddha you've been sold cannot survive your honest gaze, let him die and meet the one who does not need a name. They asked the Buddha the oldest bait questions in the book. Is the cosmos eternal? Does the Tathagata exist after death? What is the soul made of? He looked at the fire and refused to feed it. Silence as surgery. This wasn't ignorance, it was triage. The patient arrived bleeding out from craving. Metaphysics was the gossip at the foot of the bed. He cauterized speculation with quiet, because every grand theory becomes a new idol, and every idol demands worship. The fire parable, rewritten. You're shot by an arrow and insist on the Fletcher's biography. Lineage, timber, the bird whose feather became the fletch, anything to avoid pulling the shaft from your flesh. His silence ripped your eyes back to the wound. A doctrine of refusal. Refusing to answer is not anti intellectual, it's anti addiction. Silence breaks the sugar rush that keeps the mind high on ultimate explanations, while daily greed, hatred, and delusion continue their small, perfect atrocities. Institutions hate ellipses. A church can sell answers, it cannot sell a pause. So the ellipses were edited into dogmas, and the quiet where you might notice your own mind was filled with thunderous certainty. Commerce resumed, the wound stayed open. The Buddha's silence was not a gap, it was a scalpel. If your tradition can't survive 3 breaths of not knowing, it's not dharma, it's theater. Come and see, not come and kneel, not come and memorize. Come, see, audit the Dharma. Ehipasiko isn't a warm invitation, it's a subpoena. You are compelled to test claims in the only lab that never lies, direct experience. No appeal to scripture outranks a repeatable experiment in your own nerves. From copyright to copyleft, in this license, awakening is forkable. Anyone can clone the repository. Attention, ethics, clear seeing, modify the code, push a commit, and see if reality accepts the merge. Middlemen are romantic, not required. End of sanctified secrecy. Secret teachings exist to maintain leverage. Come and see removes the black curtain. If it only works behind a paywall or in an accent you can't verify, it's not dharma, it's dramaturgy. The scandal of peer review. When results are public, less reactivity, less compulsion, less narcissism. You don't need an imprimatur. You need witnesses. Temples prefer acolytes. The Dharma prefers replicable evidence. Ehipasiko is heresy because it democratizes sanctity. The moment you can test it yourself, nobody gets to be your priest. No self is sold as a delicate metaphysical flower. It's actually a demolition charge wired to every structure that feeds on identity. Eviction notice to the owner. If there is no permanent owner of the body mind, then there is no divine right of kings, no spiritual aristocracy, no metaphysical VIP list. What remains is process, conditioned, contingent, empty of inherent claim. The end of sacred blood castes, clans, cosmic passports, all lose jurisdiction. Without an eternal essence to protect, purity culture dissolves. Contagion panic fades. The altar of us versus them collapses into compost. Markets fear emptiness. Identity sells robes, badges, relics, ranks. Emptiness refuses merchandise. It debrands you at the root. You stop being type A meditator, level 3 initiate, chosen vessel. You become unpurchasable, authority without aura. If there's no self to enthrone, guidance must justify itself by function. Does it reduce suffering and delusion right now? If not, the halo is a light leak in the projector. Turn it off. Look again. Anatta is not a lullaby. It's TNT under the stage. Remove the actor, and the script can finally tell the truth. The most forbidden image is not the golden Buddha, it's the disappearing teacher, the one who hands you the mirror and steps out of frame. He doesn't mint disciples. He dissolves dependency. He doesn't collect your faith. He returns it to your senses. He doesn't found a dynasty. He makes himself obsolete. That figure cannot be franchised, relicized, or embalmed into a brand. So history edits him into a founder, a statue, a story you can bow to without changing. A true teacher vanishes into your seeing. The rest remain to be seen through. Write your questions in the comments. You give me a like and a follow. I'll give you an answer. You cannot domesticate a thunderstorm, so you build a museum around the lightning rod and call it tradition. That's how the verb of awakening became a library pass. From solvent to system, the early teaching worked like acid. Drop it on any identity and watch the crust hiss and melt. Commentarial culture turned the acid into a syllabus, layering indexes, glosses, and scholastic fences until the dissolving stopped. The Dharma survived, its danger did not. The footnote coup. Nothing kills a revolution like an asterisk, where the Buddha said, "Come and see." The footnote said, "Come and accept." Where he left a silence, the footnote filled it with metaphysical upholstery, rebirthing the very certainties he refused to bless. Taxonomy as tranquilizer, enumerations, lists upon lists, can be brilliant tools, but in institutional hands, they became tranquilizers. If you can name the 52 mental factors, you might never have to notice the one that is ruining your life right now. The rhetoric of respectability, raw directness, sounds impolite in sacred halls. The commentary rephrased the blade into a butter knife. Skillful means, they said, smoothing the edge that once severed self deception. When a teaching stays dangerous, it stays alive. When it reads like a phone book, the lion is already sleeping behind glass. Once a verb is caged, you need a new magnet to pull pilgrims. Enter the glittering marketplace. Sanctity you can see, touch, and pay for. Supply chains of the sacred teeth, robes, begging bowls, sacred trees. Objects are easier to guard than insight. A relic turns awakening into real estate. Whoever owns the shrine owns the story, and whoever owns the story taxes the soul. Pilgrim capital devotion travels on roads. Roads require tolls. Now the Dharma has operating costs: incense, marble, security, festivals. You cannot burn identity to the ground and still make the quarterly targets. So identity is rebuilt in gold leaf. Miracle arbitrage. Wonders raise the price of admission. Rain falls after the procession. Credit the relic. Crops fail after you question the shrine's provenance. That's your karma, donor. The ledger of holiness accepts only deposits. Souvenir soteriology. People leave with beads, amulets, stamped certificates. The unpurchasable thing, the quiet that exposes the eye, stays behind. Souvenirs soothe, solvents sting. Guess which one sells out? Relics are not evil, they are simply gravity. Without ferocious honesty, gravity pulls the Dharma into orbit around money and prestige. Today's temples have neon signs. The same old trick wears yoga pants. Mindfulness without mutiny. You can rent attention by the hour in HR approved workshops. It calms your employees, boosts KPIs, and never once asks who profits from their anxiety. Emptiness is marketed as ergonomics. Soften your edges so the machine runs smoother. Therapeutic Buddhism. The clinic loves nirvana so long as it means symptom reduction. When no self threatens the empire of branding, the dosage is lowered until the patient smiles and keeps consuming. Spiritual influencer economy. The robe is now a ring light. The lineage is the algorithm. No self becomes a caption under a flexing selfie. Non attachment is a whole video you can buy from the link in bio. Emptiness sells once you fill it with you. The new respectability corporations sponsor meditation summits where nothing is questioned that pays for the stage. A teacher who points at the structure instead of the stress is quietly uninvited next year. If your emptiness cannot survive a conflict of interest, it was never empty. It was marketing. You cannot domesticate a thunderstorm, so you build a museum around the lightning rod and call it tradition. That's how the verb of awakening became a library pass. From solvent to system, the early teaching worked like acid. Drop it on any identity and watch the crust hiss and melt. Commentarial culture turned the acid into a syllabus, layering indexes, glosses, and scholastic fences until the dissolving stopped. The Dharma survived, its danger did not. The footnote coup. Nothing kills a revolution like an asterisk, where the Buddha said, "Come and see." The footnote said, "Come and accept." Where he left a silence, the footnote filled it with metaphysical upholstery, rebirthing the very certainties he refused to bless. Taxonomy as tranquilizer, enumerations, lists upon lists, can be brilliant tools, but in institutional hands, they became tranquilizers. If you can name the 52 mental factors, you might never have to notice the one that is ruining your life right now. The rhetoric of respectability, raw directness, sounds impolite in sacred halls. The commentary rephrased the blade into a butter knife. Skillful means, they said, smoothing the edge that once severed self deception. When a teaching stays dangerous, it stays alive. When it reads like a phone book, the lion is already sleeping behind glass. Once a verb is caged, you need a new magnet to pull pilgrims. Enter the glittering marketplace. Sanctity you can see, touch, and pay for. Supply chains of the sacred teeth, robes, begging bowls, sacred trees. Objects are easier to guard than insight. A relic turns awakening into real estate. Whoever owns the shrine owns the story, and whoever owns the story taxes the soul. Pilgrim capital devotion travels on roads. Roads require tolls. Now the Dharma has operating costs: incense, marble, security, festivals. You cannot burn identity to the ground and still make the quarterly targets. So identity is rebuilt in gold leaf. Miracle arbitrage. Wonders raise the price of admission. Rain falls after the procession. Credit the relic. Crops fail after you question the shrine's provenance. That's your karma, donor. The ledger of holiness accepts only deposits. Souvenir soteriology. People leave with beads, amulets, stamped certificates. The unpurchasable thing, the quiet that exposes the eye, stays behind. Souvenirs soothe, solvents sting. Guess which one sells out? Relics are not evil, they are simply gravity. Without ferocious honesty, gravity pulls the dharma into orbit around money and prestige. Today's temples have neon signs. The same old trick wears yoga pants. Mindfulness without mutiny. You can rent attention by the hour in HR approved workshops. It calms your employees, boosts KPIs, and never once asks who profits from their anxiety. Emptiness is marketed as ergonomics. Soften your edges so the machine runs smoother. Therapeutic Buddhism. The clinic loves nirvana so long as it means symptom reduction. When no self threatens the empire of branding, the dosage is lowered until the patient smiles and keeps consuming. Spiritual influencer economy. The robe is now a ring light. The lineage is the algorithm. No self becomes a caption under a flexing selfie. Non attachment is a whole video you can buy from the link in bio. Emptiness sells once you fill it with you. The new respectability corporations sponsor meditation summits where nothing is questioned that pays for the stage. A teacher who points at the structure instead of the stress is quietly uninvited next year. If your emptiness cannot survive a conflict of interest, it was never empty. It was marketing. We don't need a new Buddhism. We need to exhume the one they buried under velvet and gold. The first strata you brush away is spectacle, flags, festivals, the intoxication of belonging. Under that, you find commentary stacked like bricks, each footnote a thin coat of plaster over the wound of direct seeing. Deeper still, you hit the hard clay, a handful of ruthless moves that cannot be franchised. Look, feel, verify. This archaeology isn't nostalgia, it's demolition. You tear out the load bearing myths, holy bloodlines, metaphysical warranties, corporate mindfulness, and what remains is not emptiness as vacancy, but emptiness as capacity, the space in which perception stands naked. There is no certificate for that, no VIP lane, only the scandal of a mind watching itself without an alibi. The recovery is always local. It happens in kitchens at midnight, not in auditoriums. It begins whenever a human being refuses to outsource sanity to a text, a flag, or a man with a title. The forbidden lesson returns the instant you stop performing spirituality and start noticing what craving does to a breath, a voice, a glance. That is the site of the excavation. That is where the statue cracks and the verb walks out. Take away celestial surveillance, and counterfeit sainthood evaporates. What survives? When reward and punishment are removed, morality stops being an investment strategy and becomes physics. Harm coalesces in real time, tightening throats, hardening faces, shattering trust. Care, too, is immediate, a nervous system unarmed, a room unafraid. You don't need a promise of paradise to know which act unclenches the fist. The forbidden teaching insults every empire because it makes goodness unprofitable. if compassion isn't leveraged for conversion, if honesty isn't merchandised as brand authenticity, if restraint isn't paraded as content, then virtue can't be tallied. It must be lived anonymously, like breathing without a warden. Ethics is neither sentimental nor punitive. It is functional precision. You cut the lie because lies corrode reality's load bearing beams. You refuse cruelty not to win karma points, but because cruelty distorts the instrument you use to see. You keep promises for the same reason a flint is kept dry. Clarity depends on it. And if you're waiting for a badge, that's the addiction talking. The Dharma's moral order is not a throne, it's the quiet click of causes meeting conditions. What does fellowship look like after the death of spiritual property? First, titles lose their anesthetic. Teacher becomes a verb, useful while it functions, discarded when it doesn't. Authority is rented by the moment and paid for with lucidity. The lease ends the second the guidance stops, reducing delusion. No dynasty, no brand, no sacred logo burned into foreheads. Second, accountability stops cosplaying as purity in post identity space. Confession isn't spectacle, it's maintenance. Instead of exiling the fallen to keep the showroom spotless, you repair in daylight because secrecy is how cults breed. The measure of a group is not how rarely it errs, but how swiftly it stops lying about the error. Third, the economy changes temperature. There will be roofs to fix and mouths to feed. That's fine. But money cannot purchase exemption from scrutiny or buy front row seats in the real. Donations become fuel, not leverage. When funding starts steering doctrine, the solvent has already been watered down. Finally, belonging is de romanticized. You don't join to be someone, you gather to disappear more precisely. The point isn't to chant the same slogans, it is to uninstall the same illusions. If a circle cannot survive a sincere question, it is not a sangha, it is an audience. Such communities won't trend. They will not look holy on camera. They will look like ordinary people who no longer outsource their eyes, which is to say, dangerous because they are hard to buy. Keep your bow, just remove the throne. Ritual isn't the enemy, attachment is. You can light a candle to remember the cost of clarity, or you can light a candle to purchase clearance into a club. One is reverence, the other is superstition in silk. A counter ritual keeps the flame but smashes the pedestal. It honors the dead without embalming the living. It lets silence be the priest and consequence be the scripture. It ends when attention returns, because attention is the only altar the forbidden teaching ever recognized. Their erasure never worked. It only delayed your meeting every time a human being pauses at the lip of a reflex of rage, of flattery, of certainty, and watches it form instead of climbing inside it. The forbidden teaching breathes again. No trumpet, no certificate, just less purchase by the story of me. That's the revolution no banner can catch. A species learning to look without kneeling. Institutions can brand a monk. They cannot brand a nervous system that refuses to be owned. That is why the truth had to be buried. That is why it keeps resurrecting. Give the ego a candle and it will build a cathedral around its reflection. Sanctified vanity. The moment clarity brushes your nerves, the ego drafts a press release. I am different. It swaps old trophies for new, renounces nightlife, collects lineages. Humility becomes a costume, reverence a marketing plan, holiness as currency. Once sanctity is scarce, it trades at a premium. You start arbitraging purity, stricter diets, longer sits, rarer transmissions. The forbidden teaching torches that exchange. If there is no owner, there is no shareholder value. The aura supply chain status needs witnesses. It feeds on curated audiences, theatrical silence, strategic mystique. That glow is not awakening, it's stage lighting. Pull the plug and only conduct remains. Less greed, less hatred, less delusion, unphotogenic, uncontestable. The counterfeiting test. Anything you can counterfeit is not the Dharma. Robes, counterfeit. Titles, counterfeit. Followers, counterfeit. Unpurchasable. The way your reactivity dies in real time when insult lands. No printer can mint that. Awakening that requires applause is performance art. Real clarity survives with the house lights on and no one clapping. Take the forbidden teaching to the office, to the kitchen, to the argument, and watch the stage directions catch fire. Work without worship careers run on identity fuel, titles, ladders, loyalty oaths to logos. When the identity engine stalls, you're left with function. Does this task reduce suffering or increase it? Right here, the quarterly report doesn't answer, your nervous system does. Love without ownership, romance, is religion with softer lighting. We canonize partners, demand sacraments of reassurance, crucify them when they fail to play God. The forbidden teaching de-deifies the beloved, not an altar, a weather system, beautiful, fierce, transient, not yours to possess. Conflict without cosplay. Spiritual people fight dirty by pretending not to. Passive aggression in robes is still aggression. When the script of I am the calm one dies, error can be named without theatrics. No halos, just heat dissipating in air you're both allowed to breathe, meaning without myth. You were promised purpose stamped by the cosmos. Instead, you inherit causality and consequence. That is not nihilism, it is adult oxygen. You stop bargaining with the sky and start noticing what your hands are doing to the world they touch. Take away the metaphysical scaffolding, and life doesn't collapse. Pretense does. What remains is heavier and finally able to hold your actual weight. The algorithm rewards ecstasy, the Dharma rewards accuracy. Spectacle starves substance. Viral enlightenment needs a drop, a climax, a hero shot through incense. Actual release is quieter, fewer compulsions, softer reflexes, a face that stops auditioning. Views plummet, reality stabilizes, invisible miracles. There are no levitations here. The miracle is a thought arriving and not being hired, a provocation landing and not recruiting an army of justifications. Bored only to people addicted to fireworks. Unremarkable radiance freedom looks like someone washing a bowl without narrating sainthood. The camera wanders off. Good. The most forbidden thing in a spectacle culture is a life that no longer needs an audience. The poverty of branding emptiness does not scale into a lifestyle. The more honest you become, the fewer slogans fit. Eventually, there's nothing left to sell but the one thing nobody wants to buy: responsibility for your own seeing. Liberation is radio silence to the market and a thunderclap to the mind that kept demanding a show. Refusing the pageant has consequences. Expect fewer invitations and more reality. Excommunication by politeness. You won't be burned at the stake. You'll be ghosted from green rooms. Institutions don't debate solvents, they blacklist them. Congratulations, you've become unbookable where booking was the point. Loneliness. Without the costume party community built on costume dissolves when you undress. For a while, the room thins. Then the few who prefer oxygen to incense appear. They're rare. They're enough. Power without leverage. When you stop trading an image, you lose leverage and gain gravity. People can't be coerced by your aura. They're either moved by contact with what is, or they're not. That loss is terrifying. It is also clean. Irreversible simplicity. You can't unknow the solvent once it hits. Returning to performance will nauseate you. That nausea is your compass. Let it exile you from the funhouse until your feet remember the feel of ground. The cost of not playing along is the end of borrowed warmth. The reward is heat from your own fire. The market can price halos, but it cannot price absence. The moment you quit performing sanctity, the attention economy loses its favorite product, your curated soul. Algorithms crave spectacle, not sobriety. They hawk ecstasies, not exits. Refusal breaks the loop. No confessional captions, no brand new revelation every Tuesday, no famine feast drama to harvest clicks. Silence isn't a bug, it's a boycott. You notice how every platform trains you to narrate yourself into a commodity. My practice, my journey, my healing, a boutique boutiquing itself. But the forbidden teaching pulls the plug. If there's no owner who's being marketed, what's left to upsell once the me collapses into process? Refusal evaporates leverage. Without image, you cannot coerce. Without aura, you cannot manipulate. You become bad currency, unspendable in economies that trade on vanity and fear. This is why the solvent gets erased. A populace that won't costume itself cannot be herded by the runway. Belief is a ladder, useful until you mistake it for a house. After the collapse of metaphysical scaffolding, what remains is not nihilism. It's air you can finally breathe. You stop asking ideas for permission to be honest. I don't know becomes an operating system, not an apology. Meaning drains out of slogans and reappears as conduct, micro decisions that either tighten the fist or open the hand here, now. In this clarity, explanations shrink to fit experience. No more grand narratives as narcotics. No more making your pain impressive enough to deserve relief. Pain is physics, relief is also physics. You watch causes meet conditions without a priest narrating your pulse. Functional sobriety is indecent by institutional standards because it refuses incense. It tests everything by a single voltmeter. Does this reduce greed, hatred, delusion right now in a body I can feel? If not, even the prettiest cosmology is theater. Let the curtain drop. When all the statues fall, one sneaks back wearing your face. The subtlest addiction is the identity of the awakened self, the graduate who frames emptiness as a diploma. It's the smile that begs admittance to a higher caste of calm. It's the public modesty with private spreadsheets tallying holiness points. This idol survives every revolution because it feeds on compliments you pretend not to hear. The graduation myth is irresistible. The mind wants a photo where the journey ends and the lighting is perfect. The forbidden teaching torches the backdrop. No final picture, no tassel to turn. Clarity keeps expiring into fresh attention, or it isn't clarity, it's perfume. The paradox is merciless. The moment you own awakening, you've hired the very actor the solvent was written to evict. Ownership reanimates the ghost. The only cure is use. Let the seeing keep doing what diplomas can't. Cut through glamour on contact, including yours. Miracles that sell glow, miracles that work go unnoticed. Free of choreography, awakening stops auditioning and starts repairing. It answers the door before the second knock. It returns the wallet and forgets to post about it. It names a lie without arranging a spotlight for the naming. It declines the compliment because the circuit is complete without applause. Plainclothes clarity does not refuse beauty, it refuses staging. It's the grace that happens when the eye is too occupied with accuracy to beg for witness. It's the sentence trimmed of adjectives until it lands like a tool, sharp, ordinary, indispensable. No one can franchise this because there's nothing to show, only less harm where harm was automatic. Institutions do not know what to do with a miracle that won't pose, so they airbrush it back into myth. Let them. The furnace doesn't need a frame. You will lose audience, aura, and easy membership. keep the losses. You will lose the warm fog of belonging to a team that answers before you ask. You will lose the serotonin drip of being seen as holy. You will lose shortcuts, no doctrine to outsource courage, no guru to outsource doubt. What you keep is weirder and heavier, a body that lies less, a voice that threatens your comfort before it threatens anyone else's, a mind that will not kneel to its own propaganda. This ballast won't trend, it will carry. Truth is dangerous because it refuses royalties. Try to bill it and it vanishes. Try to own it and it turns on you. Try to trademark it and it files for emancipation. The solvent's business model is extinction of priestcraft, of brandcraft, of the last flaming vanity called my enlightenment story. That is why the truth was forbidden, not because it blasphemes divinity, but because it bankrupts the store. Every group starts as a circle around a fire and ends as a fortress around a throne. The forbidden teaching asks, can we keep the fire and never allow the throne? Rooms, not stages. The no temple has furniture you can move, chairs in a circle, no dais, no spotlight. Architecture disciplines psychology. Remove the stage and you amputate the fantasy of elevation. Calendars without pilgrimages. Meet often, briefly, locally. Grand annual spectacles ferment celebrity. Regular, ordinary contact keeps the solvent wet. Short, precise, unglamorous conversations where someone says, here is where I lied today, and the room nods because it recognizes itself. Ritual as reset, not reward bow. Chant, sit, fine. But end every ritual with a demolition clause. If this turns into armor, we drop it. Reverence stays sharp when it is always one breath from the trash. Rotating stewards, fixed principles. People change, functions don't. Rotate facilitation on a timer, not on charisma. Codify only what cannot be gamed. Transparency, reparability, the right of any member to question the process in real time. The no temple is built of exits, doors in every wall, including the one with the pretty icon. What holds it together isn't awe, it's the agreement to keep dissolving what asks to be worshipped. The most scandalous form of authority is the kind that makes itself obsolete on schedule. Term limited aura authority is a lease with a short expiry. You lead because your seeing currently cuts through confusion, not because a certificate says forever. When your edge dulls, the lease ends. No scandal, no coup, just physics. Teach what works you out of a job. The curriculum of the Vanishing Guide is brutally narrow, methods that make dependence impossible. Show students the gears of their mind, then point them at the exit sign. Don't call me, verify this alone. Successors without succession. The next teacher is not your chosen heir, it's the next functional clarity that shows up in any body. Sometimes that body is the janitor who names a lie no one else will. That moment, you step back. Authority follows the cut, not the costume. Public offboarding ritualize the disappearing. A teacher announces, my usefulness here has ended, and the room thanks the utility, not the person. The ceremony honors evaporation, not legacy. May I continue to vanish wherever I obstruct the view. In a culture of disappearing teachers, the lineage is the solvent itself. The only apostolic succession is accuracy. Once you stop kneeling to identities, the world sees you as disloyal. Good. Loyalty to unreality is treason against life. Art without self portraits. Creation, minus the shrine to the creator, looks plain. Fewer signatures, more repairs. Art becomes a tool that mends attention, not a mirror begging to be adored. The gallery will yawn. The neighbor whose grief eased will not. Politics without mascots. When you are unbranded, parties can't herd you with slogans. You vote like a surgeon. Does this cut reduce suffering or increase it? You are unreliable to tribes and indispensable to the real. They'll call you traitor, wear the accusation like clean water. Family without thrones, no saint of the household, no scapegoat. Roles are functions that rotate, the one who apologizes first, the one who keeps the books honest, the one who says enough when a pattern bites. Blessings are not permissions to keep harming. Work without war paint. Your company's banner is colored cloth, not a creed. You stop pledging identity and start offering skill. If the machine demands your soul as fuel, you leave. Not in drama, just in fidelity to oxygen. Unbranding offends every system that feeds on flags. Let it. You didn't come to be good at costumes. You came to stop mistaking them for skin. Truth acts like an antigen. Institutions mount a fever. Know the pattern. Don't fall for the theater. First, the smother. You'll be invited onto panels so the solvent can be showcased, contained, then shelved. Smile, speak cleanly, decline the contract that edits you into decor. Solvents die in green rooms. Then, the misquote. Your quiet refusal will be framed as arrogance or despair. Don't litigate your reputation. Clean conduct outlives gossip. Let the timeline burn while your kitchen remains precise. Finally, the banishment by busyness. If they can't discredit you, they'll drown you in acceptable work. Guard your attention like a monastery guards its well. The solvent requires drought proof water. Exit without sirens. Leave before you calcify into the reasonable dissenter they can market. No flounce, no manifesto. A small bow to the humans, a smaller bow to their institutions. Walk. Protect the flame by refusing the spectacle of persecution. Martyrs are icons, solvents are habits. You don't hold the forbidden teaching. You let it keep dissolving you where you would otherwise congeal. Micro demolitions. At the first sign of self importance, a compliment you want to laminate, pause. Let the heat pass through without building a shrine. Praise is weather. Don't build a house in the storm. Audit the hidden deals. Each evening, list the contracts you silently signed. I'll stay quiet if you keep liking me. I'll act calm if you keep calling me wise. Tear one up tomorrow. Freedom grows by breach of illegitimate promises. Restock the solvent. If you have not felt friction today, you probably rehearsed holiness instead of meeting life. Seek one honest edge, an apology, a boundary, a relinquished advantage. That sting is the pH returning. Return to function. When in doubt, do the next precise thing. Wash the bowl, answer the hard message, correct the number. Utility is the prayer the solvent understands. Non possession is not poverty. It's refusing to turn clarity into furniture. Keep moving the chairs. Kitchen table transmission. Two humans, one honest hour. No merchandise, no curriculum. A life gets 1 degree truer. Another life nearby warms. Invisible metrics count fewer outbursts, shorter sulks, faster apologies. Your dashboard is the body's reduced tension and the city's slightly kinder sidewalk. The rest is noise. Replication by refusal. People who witness you declining status without resentment catch the virus. They stop bargaining with their halos. The contagion doesn't trend, it thickens. The asymmetry spectacle wins today. Accuracy wins forever. Build for forever, and today can mock you safely. A truth that cannot be branded travels best by rumor of relief. She's less afraid. He lies less. Something got simpler. That rumor is the gospel. You don't preserve a dangerous truth by building a shrine. You keep it dangerous by keeping it useful. A code, not a creed. Function over aura. If it doesn't reduce greed, hatred, and delusion right now, it's theater. Retire the prop. Keep the tool. Experience outranks scripture. When the page and your direct seeing disagree, let the ink lose. Bow to the burn of reality. Authority rents, never owns. Guidance is a lease on clarity that expires the moment it stops cutting confusion. No dynasties, no halos with tenure. Silence is a scalpel. Refuse metaphysical sugar when a wound needs stitching. 3 breaths of not knowing are worth 30 doctrines. No self, no throne. If there's no owner, there's nothing to crown. Identities may organize logistics, they must not dictate truth. Relics are gravity, beauty can inspire, money can maintain a roof. Neither buys exemption from scrutiny. Public repair beats private rot sangha. Without confession is a showroom. Fix errors in daylight, or they will breed in the dark. Economy without leverage. Funding is fuel, not leverage. When money steers doctrine, the solvent has been diluted. Disappear into function. Let usefulness replace display. The miracle is that anger arrives and does not hire you. Exit is sacred. Keep a door open in every wall, especially the one with your favorite icon. A code is a living voltage. No logos, no signatures. Only habits strong enough to outlast our need to be seen. Not instructions, physics. Morning audit. Before the narrative boots, ask the body 2 questions. Where is clench? Where is reach? That is your map for the day. Contact hygiene. If a conversation requires you to inflate or shrink to belong, step out. The cost is attention. The dividend is oxygen. One unpurchased moment. Each day, do one precise thing that earns no status. Return the cart. Answer the hard message. Correct the number against yourself. Freedom thickens. Praise protocol. When complimented, drop it through the sieve. Did my conduct change or just my image? Keep the change. Compost the image. Night ledger. Log 3 lines. Where I lied, where I saw, where I repaired. Repeat tomorrow. This is not asceticism. It's maintenance, like sharpening a blade you actually use. Spectacle, antidote, plainness. If it needs a drum roll, it probably can't stand a question. Certainty, antidote, 3 breaths. Pause until the craving for an answer shows its face. Belonging, antidote, small exits. Leave rooms that reward costume over contact. Legacy, antidote, evaporation. Make yourself obsolete at the peak of your usefulness. The awakened persona, antidote, use or lose. If it can't turn anger into clarity on contact, it's perfume. Wash it off. You were promised fireworks or nothingness. The forbidden middle is ordinary joy, not bliss staged for an audience, not numbness disguised as equanimity, the tender buoyancy of a nervous system that lies less. Humor returns. Food tastes like food. People stop being mirrors for your holiness and start being people again. No climax, no collapse, a steady warmth that doesn't require a witness. This is the scandal, liberation that looks like someone keeping their word, laughing in the kitchen, and sleeping through the night. They erased the sentences. They couldn't erase the physics. The physics that when clinging releases, suffering loosens. The physics that attention, unbribed, sees through the costume. The physics that kindness is cheaper to sustain than cruelty. The physics that selfing is a habit, not a soul. Erase the ink, and the world keeps repeating the lesson in the body. Tighter when we lie, lighter when we don't. The dharma is not a brand. It's what gravity does to a thrown stone. You were taught to worship a statue. I came to hand you a match. Do not found a movement around this. Do not embroider these words on robes. Test them where the day hurts. At the first spark of rage, the first sweet pull of flattery, the first urge to be special. If the seeing cuts, keep it. If it doesn't, throw it out, even if my name is on it. Let the Buddha be a way a human body minds itself until pretending is no longer needed. Let awakening be a verb that keeps dissolving the places you try to kneel. Let your life be the small scandal of someone who cannot be bought by fear or praise. I'm silent flame. If this teaching survives me, it failed because someone bottled it. Let it vanish into your conduct instead, where you stop kneeling to an idea of yourself. The forbidden truth prints itself again in letters no fire can touch. Walk on.